Today, I will tell you a story about a certain connection between the Polish mountains and the distant Balkans, with regions more than 1,200 kilometers away from Poland. Welcome. The pretext for the story will be a trip to Mount Gorc, located in the eastern part of the Gorszański National Park. The mountain is 1,228 meters high. At its summit, there is an observation tower. We stop in the village of Wrzeki. The trail is just over 13 kilometers and should take no more than 4.5 hours to hike. We hike to the tower using the blue trail. From the tower, we take the green trail, and after about 2.5 kilometers, we turn right onto an unmarked path. After walking about 1 kilometer, we reach the red trail, then the blue one, which will lead us to the car. Links to the place where we parked the car and the route details can be found in the description below the video. It is the beginning of May of the year 2023. Spring here is just beginning to awaken. The first flowers and the first leaves are appearing. After a 1.5-hour climb, we reach a meadow called Svinkówka. From here, the observation tower, which is our goal, is already visible. And now is the right moment to begin the proper story. The vast majority of such meadows in the Polish mountains were not formed naturally. They were created by people. The Vlachs, a mysterious nation originally inhabiting the Balkan Peninsula. Let's go back in time, deep into the Middle Ages. The ancestors of the Vlachs who came to the territories of Poland initially inhabited the areas of today's Croatia, Serbia and Montenegro until the 5th century of our era. After the fall of the Roman Empire, there was an expansion of the southern Slavs. At that time, the Vlachs were pushed to the mountainous regions of today's Albania, North Macedonia and northern Greece. It is here that they began to engage in pastoralism, raising sheep and goats. They led a nomadic lifestyle, moving with their flocks from place to place, reaching Bulgaria and the Carpathians in today's Romania, along the way trying to create elements of their own statehood. The harsh, mountainous living conditions and the lack of permanent settlements made them tough, resilient, and warlike. Meanwhile, in the 14th century, the Ottoman Empire invaded Europe and partially occupied the Balkans, including the areas of today's Bulgaria and Romania, which prompted a significant portion of the Vlachs to move north, mainly to the mountainous regions of today's Ukraine, Slovakia and Poland. This is how Vlach settlement began in the Polish mountains. But why were they so freely allowed to settle here? There were two main reasons. The first reason was military. As tough and warlike people, they were obliged to guard the trade routes through mountain passes, defend nearby Polish towns in case of foreign army invasions, and upon the king's call, join the ranks of the Polish army and participate in wars. The second reason was economic. In the Middle Ages, the Polish Slavic population was engaged in agriculture. At the beginning of the 14th century, Europe experienced the so-called Little Ice Age, which caused a significant decline in agricultural production and consequently a food crisis. Therefore, landowners were eager to accept Vlach settlement, which managed the mountainous areas where traditional farming was no longer possible. But pastoralism and the raising of goats and sheep were perfectly feasible. As part of the lease rent, the Vlachs provided sheep meat, wool, and sheep cheeses previously unknown in Poland. Over time, natural assimilation with the local population and natural cooperation developed, in which the Vlachs received agricultural produce in exchange for goat and sheep products and artisanal goods previously unknown in Poland. The scale of this settlement is evidenced by the fact that hundreds of Vlach villages were established in our Polish mountains. To graze the sheep, which were the foundation of their existence, they cleared and burned forests on the mountain slopes, creating meadows where they spent the summer months with their flocks. So, if you come across such meadows in the mountains, know that they probably originated in the Middle Ages. We are at the observation tower. It is named after David Woloch. Who was David Woloch? Now is a moment to enjoy the views from the tower, and I will continue telling the story. It is the year 1410. Every Pole knows this date because on the 15th of July of this year, near the village of Grunwald in northern Poland, a victorious battle took place between the Polish and Lithuanian armies led by the King of Poland, Władysław Jagiełło, against the Teutonic Order, which marked the beginning of the end of the Teutonic domination in Polish Pomerania. Meanwhile, in southern Poland, in the areas where we are currently located, the then ally of the Teutonic Order, the King of Hungary at that time, Sigismund Luxemburg, invaded these lands and devastated them, destroying, among other things, the village of Ochotnica, which lies at the foot of the mountain where we are now. The invasion was repelled. In the fights against the Hungarians, groups of Vlachs fought alongside the Polish troops. One such group, in recognition of their contributions in the battles, was allowed to settle here and rebuild Ochotnica. The leader of this group, a certain David, was granted a location act by King Władysław Jagiełło in the year 1416, establishing him as the hereditary village head of Ochotnica. In the Middle Ages, surnames were not yet used. They appeared several centuries later. Woloch is thus a nickname indicating his ethnic affiliation. David's descendants adopted the surname Ochotnicki. I will make a film about Vlach settlement in Polish lands someday. When I returned from the trip and began to delve deeply into the history of this nation, I realized how greatly they influenced the economic development of mountain regions, the folk culture of our Polish mountains, craftsmanship, and traditions that have been preserved to this day. At the same time, how little we, Poles, know about it. Meanwhile, via the Red Trail, we reach the Kamienica stream, which will lead us to the place where we left the car. Along the way, we will pass a camping area on the Trusiowka meadow, where you can light a fire and roast sausages. We say goodbye to Mount Gorc, and I invite you to the next video, where you will discover another interesting place and another story related to that place.